And thank you for joining us at this time. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business Television. The top stories. President Bola Tinubu appoints 6 new executive directors in the Nigerian Port Authority and the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. A bill to establish 47 new federal-owned universities scaled through second reading. Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Tunji Alausa, attributes Nigeria's drug price increase to prolonged presence of multinational pharmaceutical companies in the country. Details coming up shortly. Right, welcome back. I am Omohefe Peace of Semere. Now, President Bola Tinubu has appointed 6 new executive directors in the Nigerian Port Authority and the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Both agencies are under the Federal Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. Special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajurin Ngelale, revealed this in a statement he signed yesterday. According to Ngelale, the President approved the appointment with the firm belief that the new appointees will expeditiously and efficiently execute on their collective mandate to transform the Nigerian economy into a labor-intensive and inclusive one that creates new opportunity for all Nigerians and also to create the conditions required to significantly raise the contribution of the marine and blue economy sector to the nation's GDP. Now, Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule yesterday signed the release of 14 inmates selected from across the 6 correctional centers in the state. This was in line with the exercise of the powers conferred on him by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Sule said the exercise was carried out after due consultation with the State Advisory Council on the prerogative of mercy to ensure due compliance with the law and to avoid negative impact. He advised those getting the pardon to be of good conduct, such that the government would be motivated to free more inmates in the coming period. The governor had on Monday approved the pardon for the 14 inmates serving various jail terms at custodial centers in the state. In a related development, Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State has approved the release of 10 inmates in correctional centers in the state and commuted 4 death sentences to life imprisonment. The State Controller of Correctional Service, Abdurrahim Salami, disclosed this in a statement issued by the command's Public Relations Officer, Oladewaju Ajorin, in Ibadan and made available to newsmen. Salami stated that 15 additional inmates had their sentences reviewed downward, while another 4 were granted conditional release under the governor's signed clemency order. He said that the 4 inmates granted conditional release were undergoing degree programs at the National Open University at the custodial centers and would be released upon graduation. The controller said governor's gesture provided forgiveness and hope to dozens of incarcerated individuals across the state. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business Television. Still to come, health, they say, is wealth. However, the health of Nigerians seem to be in dilemma with the outrageous spike in the price of drugs. Details of this and more after the break. Do join us again. Right, welcome back from that break. Thank you so much. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business Television. And now a bill to establish 47 new federal-owned universities has scaled through second reading. The establishment of these institutions in Nigeria means that the total number of federal-owned universities may hit 99 in the coming month. According to media reports, there are 52 federal universities in Nigeria, with some states of the federation hosting more than one. The House is also considering various bills to establish about 32 federal colleges of education, 11 federal colleges of agriculture, and 5 federal polytechnics in addition to the already existing institutions. And this is just as about 56 bills have passed for the second reading to establish federal medical centers in different parts of the country. In the meantime, the National Association of Nigerian Students Association President, for Benin Republic, Ugochukwu Favor, has called for the arrest of the reporter Umar Audu, who went undercover to expose corruption in the issuance of certificates in the country. Favor, who spoke during an interview on a national television program, slammed the reporter for having his passport stamped and obtaining certificates without being physically present. According to him, the reporter was implicating the government and questioning the credibility of agencies like the Immigration and National Youth Service Corps by going undercover. The NANS president for Benin Republic further urged the government to look into the loopholes exposed by the investigative report and take the necessary steps as fast as possible. Now let's move on to other matters, where the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Tunji Alausa, has attributed Nigeria's drug price increase to the prolonged presence of multinational pharmaceutical companies in the country. Alausa stated this during the inauguration of the Federal Medical Center Clinical Complex in the Ebute Metta area of Lagos State on Thursday. The minister noted that the problem of foreign pharmaceutical companies being in the country for longer than 5 years will be remedied and the regular procedure will be resumed. Alausa further said that 4 pillars will be put into place to promote the country's progress and the expansion of health care. He added that the nation will produce over 120,000 nurses by the end of the year, in contrast to the previous number in the country. Now, health, they say, is wealth, and Nigerians' health seems to be in dilemma with the outrageous spike in the price of drugs. According to media reports, the price of some medicines, of course, have risen almost tenfold in Nigeria. While some pharmaceutical industry officials had reportedly blamed this trend on the value of the naira after the removal of currency controls in June last year, fingers are also pointing at the exit of a GSK from Nigeria in August 2023. Although Nigeria launched its National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, in 2005 and further passed a law establishing mandatory health insurance in May 2022, the health coverage is still reported to be low. Reports have it that most people with health insurance coverage are in the formal sector, and the reasons cited for this low coverage include poor policy implementation due to a lack of policy awareness, low government spending on health, and poor evidence-informed decision-making in keeping with global challenges. Now let's critically assess the issues around healthcare vis-a-vis the surge in the prices of drugs in Nigeria. Joining us now to discuss this is a public affairs analyst, Dr. Adejo Sunday. He joins us live via telephone this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Adejo. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, Dr. Adejo, if you can hear me, would like to get your thoughts. I mean, how worried are you with the recent spike in the price of drugs, and what could be the reason? Right, we just have to take a quick break. We'll be back with, the conversation with Dr. Adejo Sunday. Do join us again. All right, welcome back from that break. Thank you so much. Dr. Adejo Sunday joins us live now via telephone. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Adejo, and happy weekend.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to all our listeners around the world.
Right, let's get your thoughts first of all. I mean, how worried are you with the recent spike in the price of drugs, and what could be the reason?
Of course, like every Nigerian, one should be worried because we are in a world where health is not what we can negotiate. Health is not in our powers to determine. So whether we like it or not, in one way or the other, we all are grappling with one medical challenge or the other. And so the affordability of drugs goes a long way to determine the well-being and welfare of Nigerians. And so it calls for worry because when the economy is down, people are ill, and people cannot afford medical bills or medical facilities or money to purchase drugs, then that becomes a very serious problem. I can tell you authoritatively that if we carry out a survey in Abuja and in some remote areas in Nigeria, you will see that people die for diseases that are curable, but because of course they cannot afford drugs.
Well, what exactly, in your opinion, do you think is the reason why prices, actually surged? Officials or pharmaceutical industry officials had blamed this trend on the value of the naira after the removal of, currency controls sometime last year, of course, in June specifically. However, fingers are also pointing, at the exit of GSK from Nigeria. Of course, you recall that that pharmaceutical company exited Nigeria August last year. Could that really be the reason, or you think there is more to it?
Well, I think there are a multi-dimensional approach to us explaining the increase in the price of drugs. Most of the drugs we take are not even locally manufactured in Nigeria. Most of those drugs are imported. So JSK leaving Nigeria may not necessarily account for the increase in the price of drugs. However, there's a general, global phenomenon in relation to inflation. It's just that more often than not, people tend to look at inflation more in terms of the price of goods, in terms of price of food, in terms of price of services, and drug, which is a critical component of human security, is neglected. And so it's a general global phenomenon. Inflation is everywhere. The cost of production is on the increase. And of course, if the cost of production is on the increase, we should expect that the cost of services we get will also be on the increase. How much was fuel? From 160 to 660. And so if an industry relies on diesel or relies on fuel to run their generator, we don't expect that they should give us services or their products at the former price. So inflation is a current reality. Government need to also come in to see how we can subsidize this sector.
Okay, let's quickly get your reaction also to the comments, made by the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, the person of Tunji Alausa, where he attributed Nigeria's drug price increase to the prolonged presence of multinational pharmaceutical companies in the country. What are your thoughts on this? Because he is saying that, the problem of foreign pharmaceutical companies being in the country for longer than 5 years, is perhaps the reason why there's been a surge, in the prices of drugs in recent times.
Well, like I said a while ago, one cannot attribute the increase in price of drugs to a single, factor.
Right.
There are multi-dimensional variables responsible for the increase in the price of drugs. Yes, we have a lot of multinationals who are specialized in producing drugs. However, if we have local drug manufacturing industries or companies, it will go to a large extent to bring down the price. But it's a general Nigerian crisis where we need to over-rely on imported products. Even the raw materials sometimes that we need for our industries are imported into the country. The government has made several efforts. For instance, we have the Raw Material Research and Development Council. We have the National Pharmaceutical Research Institute. We have all manner of institutes in Nigeria. And so there's a need to begin to strengthen this institute so as to help us in terms of what we call import substitution strategy, where we need to import drugs, and we have the necessary raw materials in our country to produce those drugs. Why should we import those drugs, or why should we import those raw materials where we can get them in Nigeria. So there's a need to encourage local manufacturing and also ensure that we have conducive atmosphere for local industries to thrive. If not, we will continue to rely on imported drugs. And some of these drugs are even substandard.
Let's say from the other side of the coin, Dr. Adejo. I mean, in a country where some Nigerians even find it difficult to patronize, made in Nigeria product, how much of, trust do you think Nigerians would have on even drugs that are locally, manufactured here?
All right, that's another dimension to inflation. You see, when demand for a particular product is high, then of course those who produce those products will take advantage. Unfortunately for us as a people, we seem to have lost trust and confidence in our capacity and in our ability to deliver. We have lost confidence in our educational system. We have lost confidence in our manufacturing sector. We have lost confidence in the construction sector and building sector, to the point that almost all of these sectors are handled by foreigners. And to a large extent, it doesn't necessarily mean that because they are foreigners, that they are giving us the best in terms of quality. But there's need for a reorientation. And I think the National Orientation Agency has a lot to play. I saw that, during Dora Akuile, late Dora Akuile of blessed memory, trying to ensure that Nigerians think Nigeria. Nigerians feel that sense of pride that we are Nigerians and we patronize Nigerian products, Nigerian goods and Nigerian services. A lot needs to change. Even the food we eat, we prefer imported rice than our local rice, and research has even shown that our local rice is of more quality than the imported rice that we eat. So there's a lot of reorientation. Apart from that, as much as we do this reorientation, it is important also that we try to ensure quality assurance in terms of production of goods and services in Nigeria, so as to reactivate the hope and confidence that Nigerians have or should have in made in Nigerian products.
All right, Dr. Adejo Sunday, thank you for that. But, we understand that, the National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, was actually launched in 2005, and in May 2022, it was passed, the law was passed establishing mandatory health insurance. But, how disturbing is it that the health coverage is still reported to be low?
Well, I am a beneficiary of the National Health Insurance Scheme. It's a very commendable, scheme by the federal government.
Isn't that because you are in the formal sector? Because we also understand that most people with health coverage or health insurance coverage are in the formal sector.
Absolutely. But lately I've seen advertisements by the National Health Insurance Scheme and even by some state agencies trying to expand the dragnet of people who are to patronize, the health insurance scheme. For instance, I know in Kaduna State, they have a wonderful program, a wonderful health insurance program in Kaduna State, where even people who are not in the formal sector can also subscribe to insurance policies and all of that. And so, but however, I think there's a need for an increase in orientation. There's a need for an increase in information dissemination. There are people in the informal sector who want to patronize this insurance scheme, but of course are not aware. They don't know that they are even qualified, to subscribe to such. There's a need to take this information down to the grassroots so that people get to understand that there are health insurance policies and they can subscribe to it. But that's not to say that the NHIS itself is not characterized with its own internal, weaknesses and challenges. Some years ago, we had serious tussle between the Minister of Health and the then Executive Secretary of NHIS. All of this created some setback for that organization. But that notwithstanding, I think the National Health Insurance Scheme is doing wonderfully well, but there's a need to actually improve upon its services and, of course, the dragnet to accommodate other people.
All right, I'm taking it a notch further. What are your thoughts on, the 2024 budgetary allocation to the health sector? There have been concerns that, the allocation for health this year is just a meager sum. Compared to other sectors. We understand, every sector in the country is important, but we know, of course, that health is equally, very important. Let's not even make a storm in a teacup as to which sector should override the other.
Well, I think I totally agree that the amount budgeted for health is grossly insufficient. If you put that side by side, the population of our country, you will discover that the amount budgeted for health is grossly insufficient. In the health sector, there are infrastructures, there are equipment, there are services that needs to be put in place. They are not there. Many of our primary healthcare centers are in comatose. Many of our general hospitals are in doldrum. If you go to Kubwa General Hospital or you go to Wusi General Hospital, you will see what we are talking about. It means that there's a need for expansion. This is Abuja. What then becomes of the fate of people who are in different states, different local government,
right,
or in the 774 local governments in Nigeria? Health should be given priority. In fact, there are sicknesses and diseases that Nigerians now grapple with and they cannot afford. That government needs to begin to step in. People need to do dialysis, they cannot afford it. These are areas government can come in, subsidize this thing, or even make it free for people, to get dialysis, to get some kind of treatment where they cannot afford, the kind of amount they need to undergo such kind of treatment. The budget for defense is quite on the high side. Of course, that is as a result of the security situations that we are grappling with in the Niger Delta, in the northeastern part of Nigeria, we have Boko Haram. In the southeast, we have secessionist agitations, IPOD, Eastern Security Network. Everywhere, northwest banditry. So, of course, the budget for defense is high. But there's a need to begin to understand that if you address issues of poverty, if you address issues of unemployment, if you address issues of inequality, you may not need to budget as much for defense, because these are remote drivers of insecurity, and if you address them, you'll be indirectly addressing the security situation in your country.
All right, let's talk about, the implication of, this spike in the cost of, drugs in Nigeria. What do you see, to be the implication of this, quite disturbing trend?
The implication is an obvious one. In fact, the first is that there's going to be increase in mortality rate, whether infant, whether maternal. There will be increase. When people cannot afford drugs, then they are left to fate. Another implication is that when people cannot afford drugs, they are forced to begin to resort to using traditional or tradomedical approaches, which is also detrimental to their health. When somebody is supposed to go to the hospital, for instance, to get maybe Artemether and lumenfantrine to treat malaria, and in less than 2-3 days, the person is back to his feet, you see people going to cut herbs, you go and cut what they call dogoyaro in Hausa, or in English they call it neem, they get pawpaw leaf, they get guava, all manner of combinations, which also has its own advantages, but of course has its own disadvantages too, because you can't tell the measurement, the proportion with which you should take and all of that. It will also give room for quacks to begin to emerge. It also gives room for fake products to begin to circulate in the society, because of course if a paracetamol costs say 10,000 and I cannot afford it, and I see another version of paracetamol that is 1,000, I'll be forced to subscribe to it. So this will bring about some behavioral changes among Nigerians, especially the poor and vulnerable. And I think governments, again, need to look into this matter.
Indeed. I mean, in recent times, there are concerns that even paracetamol, has become so expensive. There were times where paracetamol was sold for 50 naira, 100 naira, but now the case is, completely different. However, I was about to ask you your thoughts on, traditional alternatives, because in situations or times like this, Nigerians, some of them, to be specific, are left with perhaps no other option but to, revert to the traditional alternatives. You pointed out that the traditional alternatives might not be completely out of place. However, when it comes to, the right proportion, to take, it becomes, an issue. But do you not think it's about time for the federal government, and the relevant stakeholders in that area to perhaps come up with policies as to how to, promote traditional, medicines and probably, regulate activities in that space?
Well, I think it's high time, but I think government is also not totally oblivious of the fact that we have medical solutions, even in tradomedical, materials. We have people who have been able to cure not just typhoid and malaria, not just ulcer, not just kidney or liver related issues, not just stroke. There are so many illnesses or diseases that over the years, some persons have proven that they can solve and they've been able to solve. However, one thing we have also failed to do is to ensure that such products are given accreditation. Such products are given licenses by NAFDAC, haven't verified their authenticity and the fact that they don't have health implications. Such products should be seriously encouraged. However, there's a need for regulation. You walk across the streets of Abuja, in marketplaces, you see all manner of acclaimed doctors with their cars and microphones in their cars, telling you they can cure all manner of illnesses and diseases, and they end up creating more problems for Nigerians. Nigerians need to be encouraged not to patronize such people, except when they are given accreditation by NAFDAC. There are research institutes in Nigeria that can collaborate to ensure that these things are brought up to standard. I see a lot of Nigerians patronizing herbs from China, from Japan, from Korea, because we see that those things are very potent. However, we neglect our own. We need to harness our resources, harness our talents, harness our skill, and see how we can package our products to help ourselves.
Indeed.
Just during the COVID-19 experience, I can't remember that country now, that came up with the herbal supplements for treatment of COVID-19. And we saw several countries in Africa even patronize it. Yours sincerely, Nigeria, even attempted to patronize that product. Of course, they were to subject it to some experiments in NAFDAC. But my question is, why do you subject another person's product to experiment? Why not develop your own product? This is very important. Research and development is key if we must push ahead as far as these issues are concerned.
Indeed, Dr. Adejo Sunday, thank you so much. I'm afraid we just have to leave the conversation here. Thank you so much for talking to us on News Analysis today.
Thank you for having me.
And do have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Adejo Sunday is a public affairs analyst, and together we've been discussing the implication of spike in the cost of drugs in the country. That's it for News Analysis today. Thank you so much for watching. I am Omohefe Peace Osemere. I'll be back at the top of the hour with the news update.
Happy New Year,
Good afternoon.